This is a quick video to provide an overview of how we provide electricity at our overlanding primitive camp setup and how we use solar to sustain that electricity during an extended camp. Okay, so just recording to myself, I keep trying to think, is there a better way to mount the solar panel so that I can articulate it toward the sun, and if I did, would it interfere with the tent? So it does appear that on the driver's side, the winch poles are actually not in line with the tent. And this one would not interfere with any of my tarp plans. So it is doable. Would have to exceed the height of the tent, so I'm thinking 3 or 4 feet, probably minimum. But in theory, I could have a pole right there, and then the solar panel could be mounted on it, vertically or horizontally, and we could always position it into the sun and be up off the ground where it wouldn't get broken. All right, working on another little project here. This is a Renogy solar panel clamp. This is how I normally keep my camping battery and my solar panel. They're just wired to run some landscaping lights. And up on what used to be for my swimming pool, we used to have an above ground pool out here, that's where I keep my 100-watt panel there. So camping, we just set it on the ground, yada yada yada. So I had the idea, online metals, not cheap, 2-inch aluminum tube, 6 feet long, weighs very little, and just with a little effort lift it leveraged wise like that. Weighs about 6 or 7 pounds, and the idea is slip this over the ladder rack of my M416 trailer when we get to camp, and then I can point the solar panel to the sun. So 6 feet long is because it goes up and over the Smitty-built tent. Should work. Now the first challenge is material specifications are nominal. I didn't super closely read the variation on the inner diameter. So the inner diameter was supposed to be 2-inch. The ladder rack is just under 2 inches. Should have worked. It's ever so slightly off. So I'm just going to get a Dremel tool, clean out one end. So I'm going to have to drill holes in anyway because I'm going to put a pin through it at some point. But today is just a quick fitment test. Just clean that out. So that's a quick Sunday afternoon project. Everything finally came in the mail today. I'm just going to clean out the inside of that tube a little bit, make sure it fits. I'm going to assemble the panel into its bracket. And then what I think I will do when I'm not camping is, instead of leave the panel kind of clamped onto that little lean-to, I think I'm going to see about clamping the 2-inch tube with the 4-inch U-bolts right on that 4x4. So that it can catch the full southern sun. That's due south. We're up in north central Illinois here, so you really want to be above the garage roof to catch the morning and evening sun. So we'll see if my brilliant bit of skullduggery here pays off. All right, let's see how that's going to work. I think the GoPro will see that, so I'll take the GoPro with me. And we'll see what there is to see here. And the goal here is to have it slide on just easily enough, but still be snug. Let's see how it works. Unfortunately, it is quite light, so I can do this one-handed. Yeah, a little bit more. My next challenge there is a trade-off, because I still have a little bit of this old adhesive tape. But with everything else I put in these poles is helpful. With this, it's actually a bit of a hindrance. I don't think I need to go that far down, so I think I'm going to Just make sure this fits as far as I got it. Maybe put a little lube in there, see if it helps. But I think I'm going to stop at that point. Something I can always, you know, you can always take more material off, but putting material on is a challenge. Yeah, I outsmarted myself. I just cinched it on there so tightly I can't get it off. So I could be using a small pipe wrench. I definitely don't want it this smug on a camping trip and be unable to take it off. I'm going to wheel this back in just so I can close the garage door. Furnace keeps kicking on because it's a little chilly. And then I'll wheel it back out when I'm ready to. Alright, first of all, I finally found a way to route that little microphone cord so it stops getting in front of the lens. So that's the end of the tube I was just working on. That's working well enough now. And this is that Renogy aluminum solar panel clamping system that will hold it at an angle. And this is what I had to change. In order to use 2-inch aluminum tubing, it's like 2 1/4, I think, outer diameter, or 2 1/8. And that is a standard 2 1/4 inch exhaust clamp. So I just had to drill 2 holes inside the other holes because it's designed for the standard 4-inch pipe clamp of solar cells. For some reason the industry settled on 4-inch clamps, which are obviously pretty enormous and not appropriate to my little overlanding setup. But again, I'm going to use that hopefully to hold the bottom of the 2-inch tube. We'll see if it works, if I can get that around the 2-inch tube and around the 4x4 that I want it to pinch against. We'll see. But that's the idea right there. So I'm going to drill the other one similarly and put these holes in the middle. Then I'll reassemble the framework on here. And I'll see if I like it. Then I'll put the trailer back outside real quickly with the solar panel in the clamp and just see how this is going to work for our overlanding setup. Alright, just a quick glance at the workbench of what I'm doing there. So obviously I'm using these 2 1/4 inch exhaust clamps instead of the 4-inch U-bolts that came with it, which just means I just need to mark the bolts for these. But I think it's a 5/16. Yeah, not 3/8, 5/16 is too small. 3/8 hole is give you just enough slop that you have a little bit of play, but it'll still be a nice certain grip on the aluminum pole. So a couple of holes, tighten a few things up, I'll have it ready to go, and then I can test mount. I'll put the panel in it and test mount it on the trailer. As I pull this together, so again, that's those exhaust clamps in lieu of the 4-inch U-bolts that came with the kit. Now I've got to get everything plumb and square, and I got to be careful how I pick this up and set it down, because if I bang around that aluminum tube, I'm going to warp it, and then it won't slide over the ladder rack anymore. So I do have to take good care of this thing. Alright, so it's the manual that came with it. Now I'm going to just fit back together the other parts and then try, you know, it's a question of what do you lock down and what do you not lock down, so that everything ends up plumb and square and the angle is approximately where I want it. And truth is, I'm not entirely sure where I want the angle. I may do some Google research to see if, you know, different latitudes, I'm sure there is an optimal angle for capturing midday and evening sun. I'm not sure. I'm not into this, that I'm going to do that kind of research, but we'll see. At a minimum, I got to get it at least reasonably plumb and square, and then we'll put the panel in. And so I'm just messing around in the Maps app to, I honestly don't know the latitude where I am, but then, you know, we camp, where I'm going to use this is actually up in the UP. So what I really want to set the angle at is the angle for the UP, and then just put some little marks there, because the other aspect of this is ideally I'd like to fold it flat so that I can continue to take the solar panel on top of my rooftop tent, where I just ratchet strap it centered there. It wouldn't be the end of the world to ratchet strap this pole with the solar panel at an angle. Probably, maybe that's what I'll do instead of trying to think about how I'm going to adjust this with a wrench every time I go camping. Maybe I'll just set it at a given angle, lock it in, and then next time I go camping, I think what's going to happen is instead of belly strapping the panel flat on there, I will belly strap that pole to it, and those angles there will keep it flat against it pretty well. Well, interestingly enough, our land in the UP is at 45.7 degrees latitude, so at the upper limit of the range, and I will set this accordingly. All right, so interestingly, the solar panel is 67 centimeters wide. So 45 degree angle plus a little bit, actually a little harder than that. 45 degree angle is exactly, the two legs are the same length. So the upshot of all that is, ideally what I will do here is 67 centimeters span here, but also have a 67 centimeter span here, which works to my advantage. I kind of want this up because that way it's going to clear the unfolded tent cover. The tent sits up here, this goes on here, this is 72 inches, the tent's about 5 feet, so from here to here, shrinking this dimension works to my advantage. That's the ideal setup, 67 centimeters out as well as up. So again, I'll come out to about right here. It's only just going to fit on these rails. And in that same plane right there, I'm still only about 47 centimeters. That is really something to get. Oh, well, I'm being stupid too. That's the hypotenuse, not the leg. All right. Yeah, it's still pretty far off. But I should remember, 67 centimeters down there, that's the hypotenuse. So this will be equal to this. This is the square root of the sum of the squares. So you remember your geometry. So again, I want to be 67 centimeters this way and 67 centimeters this way. Well, actually, I don't need to be that far. They just need to be equal. Think about it, because 67 is going to be the hypotenuse. So that's looking like around, I don't know. It's really hard to see. I really need, like I said, I need about 5 more hands here. That's about 50, 55 centimeters in that direction. And, well, you know, that's looking pretty good. That's about 50 to 55. That's about 50 to 55. So I'll make a, again, it doesn't have to be perfect, but that'll be pretty close to the ideal angle in that latitude. Now I just need to get everything plumb and square. I'm in the ballpark. Glad I remembered that. This is looking decent. Now this guy, a little bit out of position compared to the other one. All right, without sounding overly pessimistic, I am having one of these kind of dreading Murphy's Law moments. This solar panel I've had for a year or two as a Christmas present. I've camped with it everywhere from Montana to where we go in the UP, and I don't remember how many places in between, Hoosier National Forest, land between the lakes. And I haven't broken it yet. I just have this fear that I'm about to break it because I need to be an octopus to get all this stuff done. But this bolt slides in that aluminum track and latches against this frame. It really matters which side I put the little junction box on. But it does matter that I not drop this and smash it to pieces, which is easier said than done. As I pointed out, you really have to be conscious to be able to get all of this stuff to sit. Alrighty, so I had to go change out the GoPro battery. While I was at it, I ate a quick dinner. So all that banging around on the floor does not seem to have damaged or warped the bottom of the tube. That's going to be an ongoing challenge, is handling this in such a way that I don't dent. That's a pretty good thick aluminum wall. But of course, if I ever dent that in my adventures, I won't be able to get it back up on these poles. In fact, this is the corner. The way the tent folds out, this is the most likely to be used corner in the future. Now the frame, and yes, that's actually quite secure, but this underscores the challenge. The panels are heavy. Those stiff panels like that, I haven't weighed it. I'll have to check on when I bought it. I want to say it's at least 30 pounds the way it feels, and it's very unwieldy. So I've got maybe 5 pounds there, 6, 7 pounds here of aluminum. That didn't add a lot to the weight. It's just now I'm trying to wield a 6-foot pole with this bad boy at the end of it, and that's when it gets like, so I'm asking myself, am I more likely to break it, leaving it on the ground around the campsite, trying to catch the sun where I move it around, or am I more likely to break it, trying to get this and the pole up on the trailer? So I'll have a better opinion here shortly. I'm going to wheel the trailer outside, and I'm going to do the first attempt where flat-footed, 2 hands on the pole, lower it on the pole that I've been practicing with there on the ladder rack, see how it holds up, and see how much confidence I have. Eventually I'll pin it like I pin the winches and everything else I put in these corners. And then I have to satisfy myself that I have a secure place to keep it around the house when I'm not camping, where I use this to run landscape lights. The camping battery is hooked up to landscape lights. I use this to recharge it. So this will still help around the house as well. It'll catch more sun having this up and catching the morning and evening sun. But I'm a little concerned. My original idea isn't going to work. I'm going to probably just try and zip tie it really sturdily to some 4x4s. But we'll see. I'm more concerned with how I'm going to take it down, strap it to the camping trailer, this M416 trailer, get to camp, take it off, set it aside, and then set it up on a ladder rack. I think that's going to be challenging, but we'll see. That's why you mess around with stuff like this, see what works and what doesn't. How heavy this panel is, and how difficult it's going to be. And I'll hoist this thing around. I might have to put some handles on it at some point, so you can see how tight and spaced everything is. And this is 6-foot-long aluminum pole. I can't tell what's hitting. Is it the panel? Is it the frame? The other aspect is going to be how awkward it is, and I don't want to smash the bottom of that. Boy, no, that's as high as I'm going to dare go. All right, so right off the bat, to make this work, I'm going to have to stand on something. I can do this without killing myself. Pretty interesting. God help me trying to get that off of there. But that does work. A few things to figure out here. Like, I'm going to have to have my son help me get it back off here. Because there's no way I'm going to be pulling. Jake, can you go ahead and put on a jacket? Come help me. Yeah, because that's perfectly secure there. You can see the whole trailer will go before this goes. But there's no way I'm going to wiggle and turn this and lift that up and off by myself. So in camping, I can climb up on the trailer or whatnot, but boy, that is heavy. That solar panel is heavy. All right, so again, I'm going to call that a half success. I think to get it to the height I want, I'm either going to have to put the pole up and then put the U-bolts on. I mean, that's one way I can do it. Actually, Jake, the thing I forget, when I do this at camp, I'll do it after everything's set up. Yeah, I'm being dumb. It's going to go on that back pole, and I put the metal basket on the back of the trailer, which puts me 2-3 feet in the air. Gotcha. So actually, this is going to work. It's going to work because I will be way higher. Still, I mean, that thing's still surprisingly heavy, but yeah, actually, this is going to work just as we had planned. All right, well, that was super impressive. Once again on the GoPro, I get to take 2 on that narration because it wasn't recording that entire time. All right, so it's a little less scary because I remembered when I'm camping, I stand in a steel basket on that 2-inch receiver. And at that height, I think, yes, I can manage that solar panel on the end of a 6-foot pole. But let me tell you, the thing weighs more than I realize. I'm guessing it's 30 pounds, it might be more. And you really feel that at the end of a 6-foot lever. So that's that. Now I've just got this with some strong Romex here holding it in place and a bunch of zip ties just so we can get it in position. I'll probably take some steel plumber band or whatever and create some sort of a bracket there so that I can slide that pole in and out. And this is where I'll spend most of this time. That's the 100 amp hour Renogy AGM lead acid battery that it charges running the landscape lights when I'm not camping, and those are the some landscape lights that it lights up. So I think this will work better at home and at camping, but let me tell you, it'll be exciting to decide how am I going to lash that to the trailer or the truck to make the trip up there, given how heavy it is. And yeah, I'm going to find that a little intimidating the first couple of times that I decide to set it up on the ladder rack. That is a heavy solar panel. All right, it's a Saturday morning. Small project today, but I'm going to connect the last of these little LED lights. We used these on the T-slot frame that supports the rooftop tent on our M416 trailer on the last trip, and they worked absolutely fantastically well. So very excited about that. So now I'm just going to run wire. There can be a plug right about there so I can disconnect it when I take the ladder rack off. Run some power underneath in the channel of the trailer. Bring it back up to the existing junction box, which is, I'm going to go ahead and move the camera here just underneath. You can just kind of see there where that little fastener is, and there's a few up there that I used to hold the jerry cans on. That's where the little box is, original to the trailer. It's really just a metal shield. So we'll just pop off the metal shield, make the connections. Now what I don't remember, so these trailers come with a military 24 volt system. I'm pretty sure in the original cabling there was a provision for the 12 volt hot. I did that like 25 years ago. So I got to open that up and see what I did back then. Hopefully I did it well, and it shouldn't be too difficult to establish the connection. Then there's going to be two cables. One's going to run back to that light, and it's going to have a little push button switch. And then the other one is just going to be a plug, so that when we have our camping battery in the trailer, which I typically put in the nose when we go camping, so up in the nose of the trailer is where I set the camping battery. If I plug that in, connect it to the 12 volt hot, that way on a trip the truck's alternator will charge the camping battery in addition to being connected to the solar panel, which we typically leave on top of the rooftop tent while we're driving. So it sounds more complicated than it is, but it basically will tie that light into the trailer wiring harness to the 12 volt hot from the 7-wire RV plug, which will mean anytime the trailer is plugged into a vehicle, I'll be able to use that light. I'll be able to turn it on and off. And anytime it is plugged into the camping battery, I'll be able to use that light. So that's the idea. We'll see how it works. Hopefully no surprises. There's lots of little components I bought on Amazon that I will try to remember to put that list in the description for anyone who wants to do something similar. And before I set down the tripod and move the trailer around, I'll just take a quick shot of the camping battery. So that's a Renogy 100 amp hour lead acid AGM. I do lead acid because I cold weather camp. That's why I don't do a Jackery. And the solar controller is inside this box. A little bit of a nuisance there to pop that open. And it's just a cheap Amazon controller. So when it's at home, you can see the cigarette lighter plug there. I just have landscape lights that I plug in there connected to a photo cell. And when I go on the road, I just throw that in the trailer. Now that cable in the Anderson coupling is to the solar panel. So that's another project I just did. That aluminum pole is actually not that heavy. So for the first time, next time I go camping, I will take that solar panel, instead of carrying it loose, it's going to be on that mount. Mount goes on the ladder rack. We'll see how that works. But that's the camping battery. That's what I'm going to add a plug connection directly to the battery so that I can plug it in to the 7-wire plug connection while we're traveling. We'll see how it all works out. So I get a little better look here. Put down the mechanic creeper just so I can get underneath there with less challenge. And right there is that little kind of metal shield that I'll have to remove. You see, I use some of those holes for the T-slot for the jerry can mount. And viewed from the other side, that's where all the connections are made. So I'll open that up, reacquaint myself with the work I did a couple of decades ago, and decide how to route the cabling. So again, those are just regular US customary threads. See here where I replaced those bolts and went into an anchor in the T-slot to hold this framework on. Pop those out. I should be able to take these out and just slide that cover over. And then I need to get into the wiring to confirm that I did leave myself a place to connect the 12-volt hot. Alright, so that was quite the struggle. Beveled Allen keys work best in these tight spaces. Unfortunately, I don't have them. So one thing I am pleased with past me is I used good stainless steel fasteners there, so at least there's no corrosion. Just got to get out the 2 original screws. Probably replace those, they're looking a little rough. And then I should finally be able to ascertain whether the wiring is going to be easy to connect to or whether I have a bigger job ahead of me. Well, you know, sometimes on projects it's the silly little things that take all your time, but that is the little shield. So again, I just had a few fasteners on the bottom and the top that had to come out in order for me to be able to just slide that out. And it's interesting, still has the original designations on the frame of this trailer, so it's always fun. A lot of history behind these old M416s. Okay, so now that the shield is off, I just need to get a bright light and climb in on the other side there, revisiting my 20-year-old, 25 years ago is when I was last up in that little patch of connections, and see if I left myself a good access to a 12-volt hot wire. Well, I'm going to give past me some props. That's again, this is something I did decades ago, but look at that. I labeled every wire. This is a really nice military harness, by the way, and it's one of the reasons I love military surplus hardware for overlanding is, you know, nothing is under-designed there. So you can see this thing's from the early, I think it was the early 60s, this trailer is. It's either 63 or 67, I can't remember which. It's stamped on the back, but you know, just zero problems with this wiring for decades because of the extreme high quality that went into it. But anyway, you can see right there I labeled auxiliary and grounds. I'll go double check, but I'm pretty confident auxiliary is the 12-volt hot. And as I thought, I left it there ready to be connected. It's just currently not connected to anything. So I'll confirm that with a tester, and if that's the case, man, I'm golden here. Got a good situation. All right, after much fooling around, fighting with a really old electric tester, I spent quite a bit of time fixing it, and it's one of the challenges with a tester, if you can't believe the tester, then tests are bad. So right now I'm giving it a dead short on a continuity test, and it's giving me nothing. However, if I play with it, I can get it to read. So I'm going to mess with that, get it going again, because my test light is in my truck, which is in the shop because its transfer case went out. That's your 7-wire RV plug. So I'm just going to reference the wiring diagram to make sure I correctly identify the 12-volt hot here, and then do a continuity check between here and the wire that I had marked auxiliary, which I'm 99% sure is the 12-volt hot. So if I can't get the continuity tester working, then I just have to hook, you know, a source and a load across it and make sure it lights. So one way or another, I'll be able to verify which of these posts it is and make sure that I have it wired correctly. Then I'll run my cable to allow the lighting and the battery charging to come off of that. All right. So, standard plug, the 11 o'clock position with the plug facing you on a standard RV plug, and always double check because nothing's ever standard, but on a standard RV plug, that should be my 12 volt hot. So that is what should, and I labeled it aux, which is what you normally label the 12 volt hot 20 odd years ago when I was in there. So I just have to make sure I have continuity across there and I'll be fine. All right, sometimes you have to be a little resourceful. For reasons unclear, the continuity meter on this thing, I think it's just carbonation buildup in its internal circuits. And again, that thing's got to be 35 years old. But the voltmeter works. So I just complete the circuit through a 9-volt battery to the wire labeled auxiliary, the correct position on the plug. I don't think I can do it with so many things in my hands. I'll see if I can get this set up to look at it. Might be challenging. Can't actually see what it sees, but I'll just try and hold that up in the lens. And, well, it won't matter because you won't be able to see the meter won't be in frame. See if I can get that to try. Get the meter in frame. I've got to complete the circuit from the positive terminal of the battery to the 11 o'clock position of the trailer plug. And if it goes all the way around, I should see positive 9 volts. And there you go. There's, I don't know if the GoPro's able to pick that up at all. But there's positive 9 volts. So that's what I thought, just trusting my own labeling, but don't want to do a ton of wiring and then find out it wasn't correct. So there is continuity to that post, which is what I will now connect to. And there's a very nicely done ground post. So again, the wiring done on these old military trailers is outstanding. Obviously, they had to survive in a combat environment. So decades later, it still works. The hard part is always working with T-slot, trying to get those little anchors to line back up. And I finally remembered how I did it. I just slide the T-slot bar out, put the anchors in, and then slide it over the anchors. Otherwise, they keep moving around while I'm trying to line everything up. That's the box plate kind of put back, and you can see where. So same as before, there's the cable going in. It's the same military cable. I just put a civilian 7-wire plug at the end. Again, I did that about 20 odd years ago. Well, what I've added here is two things. One, this plug, which whatever I plug in here can draw directly from the auxiliary wire from the 7-wire plug, so it'll draw current from the truck's alternator or battery while we're driving, while we're plugged in. And then this I'm just going to route back to the utility light. Alright, well, so far so good. Again, that guy is just going to get loomed up. And you can see how I ran the cable and secured it to the existing cable. So it actually worked out very nicely. It just kind of ran along the bottom of the trailer on the inside of that channel. For the most part, following the existing harness. Pops out there. And I'm just now finishing wiring the plug, the all-weather on-off switch, the other part. So that way when the ladder rack is on, lamp will be able to plug in. The ladder rack's off, I'll just wind up that cord and secure it. Alrighty, just about done. Just need to put the looming on that, and I think I'll be ready to test after I clean up my mess. All right then, we've got this guy all hooked up, the on-off button, and again that can be disconnected easily when the ladder bar comes off the trailer. And this guy is just a utility light looking backwards. And right there is the plug that will allow me to plug in the battery while it's running. While I'm connected to the trailer, I can plug anything I want into that. What I will probably end up plugging in will be, and this is just the end of that mess, those two loop connectors will go on my camping battery. And this guy with the polarity switcher will plug into that plug, and that way when I'm got the camping battery in the trailer plugged into that plug and the trailer plugged into the tow vehicle, should be able to charge the battery while I'm driving. in. Not sure if the engine needed to be running or not. I turn it on, but again, it's broad daylight, so this is very much working. All right, so come on. There we go. There's the full. Now it's got the right voltage and it's lighting up. Let's see if that's going to be an issue. Nope. Fire dried up. Alright. Let's go see. Now I don't remember on these RV
Remember if the
plugs.
engine needs to be running or if the ignition needs to be on. Using the
Family Suburban here because
The H3 is still disemboweled over at the mechanic shop over at Brian's Auto. We got the replacement transfer case in, a rebuild unit, but it has not yet been hooked up. Oh, there we go. That's what I thought. Yeah, when it's plugged in, it'll work. So there we go. Nice 12-volt LED light. One last bit of certainty. I'll put the electric tester on my little plug.
polarity reversed. And so, I don't know if the camera will pick that up, but there we go. 12 volt DC at the plug.
All right then, that was a successful project. Trailer's back where it belongs. Sparky's got his parking space back. The Cardus, currently my daily driver while we wait for the Hummer to get repaired. And now I've got a functioning utility light and a means of charging my camping battery while I am en route. So, not so bad.